Hi guys, and welcome back to my round 3 recap of the London Chess Classic under 2000s. I did lie to you on my last video and I said I would be wearing the same outfit, but I actually couldn't film my recap last night because there was a simul going on upstairs where I usually film. So you can see I'm actually filming in the playing hall before the round 4 starts. So in round 3 I had the black pieces and I was playing against another 1950-ish rated player. So that's kind of scary, but also my last one I made some draws against people of similar ratings, so I know it's not impossible. My opponent this round was also 17 though, so it's kind of different to be playing a 17-year-old who's almost 2000 and someone who's been 2000 for a really long time. But anyway, let's actually flip the board so that we can see it from my perspective, so that you're on my side. So I didn't know what he was going to play, but we had a French. I thought that we were going to have a classical French, so I played bishop b4, which is the winnower, and then he actually transposed, so he played the delayed exchange variation, which is kind of annoying because no one wants to play the exchange French on a good day, and I guess this was a good day because I won in the morning, but I still didn't want to play the exchange French. So usually in the exchange French I put my bishop on d6, so this is a bit strange for me for this setup. I don't usually have it, but okay, it should be fine. There's nothing wrong with having the bishop on b4. And bishop to d3 is a really normal developing move, so I played knight g7. So knight e7 basically prepares bishop f5, which is very normal in the exchange French for planning to trade off your light squared bishop. Basically the exchange French does allow black to solve that problem piece. So that's my plan, bishop f5, except my opponent decided he was going to play super aggressive chess. And not gonna lie, I was a bit confused because this is not a line I've ever seen before. Okay, so we only have 175 games in the database in this position, which is very, very low, because we're only on move 6. So this is definitely non-standard for the exchange French. And obviously if I castle, I get checkmated in one move. So I'm not going to castle. I guess I could have if I really wanted to go home early, but instead I played knight bc6, just attacking on d4. And a3 is basically getting me to ask a question, because now I don't have time to take on d4 because the bishop is covering c2. If the bishop wasn't covering c2, then maybe I'd have knight takes, and then knight takes c2 with a fork on the king and the rook, but I don't have that here. Here I did consider playing g6 and then dealing with the bishop, but I just traded off the bishop. I think this was pretty much the best option. I have to trade it anyway, otherwise I'm gonna hang d5, g6, and queen back to f3. So obviously I'm a little bit unhappy about having to have played g6 and not having a dark squared bishop, so I have slightly weakened squares here where I would usually castle my king. So I basically decided I wasn't going to castle my king that side of the board, which makes a lot of sense if you ask me, but also it's very scary to castle long here because there's an open, semi-open b file. So bishop f5, and obviously white doesn't want to trade and allow my knight to become very active, so they continue development, I continue development. Queen d7 makes a lot of sense because I was kind of concerned about ideas of bishop coming to g5 and basically having a little pin there that I would have to solve. So queen d7, a little bit prophylactic. Also means I can recapture this way if I ever wanted to. And then h3, preparing to kick my bishop. And here I played h5. And I was a bit reticent to play h5 because obviously I now have given up all control over the dark squares on the king side. But my king, like I said, isn't going there anyway, so it shouldn't be the end of the world. Here I think the engine just wants me to trade bishops, but that did kind of feel a little bit too compliant, so I didn't do it. Bishop to f4, just attacking on the dark squares, but I really didn't think this was a very scary move. Rook g8. So I kind of thought if they ever castled this way, then I'll just play g5 immediately and I get a really nice attack. This was my little thought, and the engine is kind of in agreement that I have a little bit of an edge here. So that was my thought behind rook g8. Also stops black from ever getting any kind of tempo on my rook, especially if I were to say move my knight from c6, bishop e5 ideas. I don't want a tempo on the rook. So my opponent here obviously doesn't want to castle into that attack, and he played the move king d2. So I was kind of unsure if he wanted to keep his king in the middle of the board, and it's actually not that bad. Okay, Stockfish is giving me a slight edge. I did remember to include the eval bar in this video, but I didn't think this move was particularly scary, but I do understand why he played it. Knight a5, and I'm basically saying if you let me trade with the bishop on d3 and you want to capture back, then I will fork you with knight b3. So if I ever trade here on d3, I'm very aware of the fact that white does want to take with the pawn, because white wants to have control over e and c4, because those would be really, really nice squares for my knights to go on. So having this pawn, even though it's be doubled anyway, even though they're not getting to undouble those pawns, would be much better on d3, I think, practically. So obviously he doesn't allow me to do this. And now there's a really interesting idea from the engine. I played a6 because I don't want anything coming in like rook b5. But the really interesting idea from the engine is bishop to e4. So I'd never considered playing this here. I did consider it a couple of points through the game. Basically, it does give up a pawn, but in compensation, you're going to get your knight at some point to c4. Not right now, because we're going to castle. But at some point, we probably get the knight here. And maybe after like rook e8, we get some tempi on the queen. So we do give up our one central pawn, which was very inhuman. I think like I wouldn't play this as a human. It's very Stockfishy. But it's a really interesting idea, and it's not something that I had seriously considered, because all I saw was that loses my central pawn. Why would I do that? I'm stopping them from pushing c4. I'm stopping them from doing a lot of things by having this pawn. So this is a really interesting idea, but like I said, it's not something I seriously considered. And here I just castled, because bringing the rook to e1 is quite clear that he wants to play on the open e-file, and I also want to play on the open e-file. So I'm going to get my king out and put a rook on e8. My opponent decides to reroute the knight, which I was quite surprised about, because it's a bit open for a slow knight maneuver, but it's actually okay. And I know I do have the edge in quite a lot of this game, but I have the edge if I play weird moves like bishop to e4. And I just personally think that that's not an easy move to find. So rook e8 is apparently a miss because I didn't give up my pawn here. And then knight b3. And apparently I should just take here and fix the pawns. And then if we trade, we just have like a more equal position. And like maybe I should have done this. This probably would have been a much simpler position to play on both sides, because it's just like I have this kind of kingside initiative over here, and it does actually close up the b file, which was the scary file. So maybe I should have done this. This looks quite normal, but here instead I played bishop takes d3, which actually now the engine is saying is the best move. So let the engine think, let it cook. I actually cooked for quite a while here. As you can see, I have 38 minutes. And I had 43, so I spent a little bit of time on this move. And here I was just kind of concerned about what if this, but then I saw bishop e4 must be good here. And I was like, I gotta be happy. And if there's any crazy stuff here, I was like, well, surely I have knight. That's not how knights move. Surely I have knight f5. I felt very good about this position. So I wasn't too concerned about knight takes knight. I definitely knew my opponent was planning knight c5, so he did play knight c5, which apparently wasn't that good. And I did look at bishop e4 here, but I found it like messy. And I was going to play knight c4. So I was really convinced that if he played knight c5, I was going to play knight c4. And obviously if they take here, this is really, really bad because of queen f5 check. And their king is quite short on squares. But what I had calculated in my head, and my head is not very good at visualization, is king c1, and then I had calculated that I would play queen to f5. And queen to f5 is a bad move, and so I'm very happy to see that I was right. So I thought that basically everything looked very scary here. I also thought that maybe this move looked scary, but I've just seen that hangs a rook, so never mind. This is what I mean by not being good at visualizing. I also just thought that pawn takes bishop wasn't very good for me, and then what have I accomplished here? Because now there is actually rook e5, so I'm not actually that wrong in my calculation, because after they take the bishop and we're forced back, what have I really achieved in this position? And Stockfish isn't on my side either, so it turns out that actually my calculation was sound. I just didn't find the best move. And the best move in this position, I mean, I have a couple. I also have knight c6, which is really nice, because obviously if they take the queen, they're actually probably almost getting mated. They have to give the queen back. So I think this is really the most human attacking move here is knight c6, and I missed that. So that's why I didn't play this intermezzo. knight c4 check, and instead I just moved my queen, which wasn't the right thing to do. And now we just kind of have an equal position after c takes, and knight f5 apparently is the only good move. I mean, it's a very obvious move to me. And then my opponent thought for a while, and as you can see, we both have about half an hour on the clock, and we've only made 20 moves. So that's, 20 more moves we have to make until time control. My opponent didn't really seem to know what to do, and I could tell that from the fact that he just started making trades here. And I had always planned to bring my knight to d6. Just made sense to me. I was like, I'm going to bring the knight to d6. But I also wasn't super happy about the idea of bringing the knight to d6, because I thought maybe my king would have to try and make it up here in order to at some point kick this knight away. And I thought knight to d6 was nice because it covers b7, but this knight isn't actually liberated because it doesn't have anywhere to go. And this is my second game of the week where I have a knight on a5. So I wasn't sure about this, and so at the last second I saw this move, knight to g7, and I was like, oh, I can put it on e6 and I can attack the bishop and the knight at the same time, which obviously doesn't work, so my opponent plays bishop h6, and then after here queen takes pawn. And I had looked at this and I thought queen takes pawn was okay, but I really just missed this move, knight d8, that I need to play to kick the queen back, and then I can play knight back and start dealing with this troublesome knight. So I really just messed up here, because I didn't realize how bad this position would be after I traded the knights. And I know trading the knights might seem strange to you, but this knight had been so annoying the whole game. It had kept my pieces tied to b7, and I just wanted rid of it. And then I realized in this position there really is no good move. This isn't a good move. Bringing the rook off the open file isn't a good move. And so like the only real move I felt was queen e6, which just feels bad because then they trade. But if they didn't trade queens, I think my position would be okay, but I felt very bad in this ending. As you can see, the engine is like +1 for white because they're up a pawn. And I did feel that maybe I had drawing chances in this endgame, and I thought, especially after I traded this bishop, I did have drawing chances. And here, I think if I'd played king c6, like practically speaking, maybe I would have been okay, but apparently g5 here is just really good, so I didn't see that. And now my rook is kind of trapped. But I thought this looked not bad because I can play for like b6 and try to create a pass pawn. But here I actually blundered, in my opinion, and I played rook e7. Okay, and the engine agrees that I blundered, because basically I think rook e7 works okay if they trade. And I'm right, see? I'm still probably drawing this ending. But what I had missed as soon as I played rook e7 was I saw this move, c6 check, which is an amazing move, and I have to give my opponent so many props for seeing this, because this is such a high-level, high-tech move, because it just spoils black's chances of creating a pass pawn on the queen side at all. And so I have absolutely no compensation for being down a pawn. Now the white king can just come and take my a pawn and promote. So as you can see, after trading the rooks, I simply have to stay in the square of the pawn because he can create a passer, and now I can't. So I think my move would have been totally fine if there wasn't this c6 resource, but unfortunately I saw this resource just like a couple seconds too late. As you can see, I had 6 minutes, and so I was kind of down to the point on the clock where I had to play a move a minute, and never a good position to be in. But my opponent was also using quite a lot of time, so I felt okay about it. But I really did just overlook this move, which is so clean. And obviously he's got the edge anyway, being up the pawn in the ending, but this is just really, really nice. And so I resigned quite soon after, because after we trade those rooks, he's just going to go and get this pawn, and I really don't have any chance of playing on. And we were about to make time control, so I could have been very bitter and played on if I'd wanted to, but honestly I didn't. I know he's going to be able to convert this. Black has literally no chances, so congrats to my opponent. c6, honestly I was really impressed. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I really hope he doesn't see that, but of course he did. So yeah, I did have some chances. As you can see, I'm still getting good positions against these players, even though they're like 300 points higher or whatever. Not here, this is where I blundered. As you can see, I'm still getting decent positions, but I'm just not at the point where I'm able to convert them. And I just think that this was a very difficult game to play because there were no easy moves. I was taken out of my comfort zone very, very early on in the opening by this weird move order. So I was using quite a lot of time from the get-go. And I think my opponent also wasn't in book either. So yeah, that was the game. I don't feel that bad about it. I didn't feel that bad about losing it because I think he was just the better player. And I think it was very instructive. So I hope you guys like this game. I now need to go and get ready to play round 4. I have the white pieces, and I think I'm playing like a 1750 or something. So that's much more reachable in terms of somebody I can beat. So I'm very excited to see how that goes. I hope you enjoyed this recap, and please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you tomorrow. Bye guys.